all the formalities covered, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Natasha Tolleson, all right, who is, her session is on preparing for and directing your one-act play. Okay, I know we're all interested in that. So if you didn't know, Natasha Tolleson has been the head of the Temple High School theater program for 29 years, snaps for Natasha. In 2018, she was selected as Educator of the Year by the Texas Educational Theater Association. In 2014, she was inducted into the Texas Thespians Hall of Fame. In 2011, she was named one of the UIL Sponsor Excellence Award winners. In UIL One Act Play, her teams have won the 5A state championships 2 times, with Ruthless in 2007 and Bug in 2016, which I had the pleasure of judging at state meet. Her One Act teams have advanced to state 8 times and have been named district co-champions for the past 28 years. Her students compete in the UIL Theatrical Design Contest. They've won state championship in group design in 2008 and 2014. In the UIL Film Contest, Tolleson students won the state championship in Division II Narrative in 2014. She also serves on her campus as the UIL coordinator. She coaches prose and poetry and literary criticism. It is my pleasure to introduce your presenter today, Natasha Tolleson. Natasha, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Paula. Like Paula said, I'm really used to, when I do workshops, I'm really used to lots of interaction and a lot of questioning. So please feel free and interrupt away. What I've done, I have made a handout for you, and it is, let's see if I can move it. There we go. It is 66 pages long, and it covers lots of the things that I'm talking about today. I just put together some things that I thought would be useful for you. And doing that, I have made, uh-oh, I don't know what that noise means. My tech support is my husband. Oh, here we go, here we go. These are the sort of the topics that I'm going to be talking about. And then this is probably more information than you'll ever want in this handout, but I just gave you examples of things that I've used in the past that have helped me in getting my one-act play together. The first thing is finding your script. And people, I've been reading a lot of the posts on the one-act play Facebook page for the one-act play directors, and people are stressed about this, even more so I think right now because of the uncertainty of what's going to happen next year. But I read a lot, and that's what everybody's doing right now. I think we have been given some extra time, of course, to do some reading. And where do I find my scripts? Well, I look through the publishers, and I look at recently published scripts, new things. I really like to find new work or work that is unfamiliar. I think that we get in a rut sometimes, and I see a lot of the same plays, and that is not a bad thing because they're always a new experience for those particular students. But I try to find something new or fresh or timely. So I look through what universities are doing. I look at major universities, their websites, and I'll see plays and I'll think, oh, I don't know that script. What is that script? And I'll do some research and figure out what it is. So I look at a lot of recently published and university performances. And I listen to friends, and I just read a lot. When I pick my script, I think that it's so important that you pick the script to match your students. There's so many shows I would love to do. You know, I have wonderful favorite shows and shows that mean a lot to me, but if I can't cast them, it's not going to work. So I really try to look at my kids and figure out what they can do. In the last couple of years, we've done some really interesting shows. I've had some really quirky, fun, maybe not stereotypical leading men, leading women kind of students. So I've had a good time trying to find shows that would work for the talent that my kids have. And I tell my kids that you audition for me every day. So I try to make sure that my script fits my kids. As far as cutting the script, I read it probably 3 times before I cut it. And people ask a lot of times, about cuttings. I think you cut your script based on your kids. So sometimes some cuttings aren't going to work. I know people share cuttings, and I know that's really not something we're supposed to talk much about. But I find that cutting my script, I always cut it long. And when I send it to UIL, I know that what I've cut is not quite going to be 40 minutes yet. It's probably more like 50, 55 minutes, knowing that gives me a little bit of, uh, I know that the show's going to grow. Like when I start my show, the show might be 35 minutes at district, and by the time I get to region, I'm praying it doesn't go over, because the kids have added, and we're taking time, we're taking moments. So I make sure that when I cut, I don't cut quite to 40 minutes. I cut a little long. Any questions so far, Paula, with anybody?
Yes, a couple of questions. So,
Sure.
so how can we read a high volume of scripts when the samples are not available? So this director has a question about cost. So,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I have a huge library, and I've been collecting shows for such a long time. I just, a lot of times right now, I'm seeing that they're making scripts available to be read. I just got something from some publisher today, an email saying that it's available for you to read for a limited amount of time. I know that the UIL has the loan library, and I'm also willing to loan my scripts. I do it all the time. I even loan people from out of state, and they've always been returned to me. And I'm willing to loan. I know that like an actor's edition normally now costs between probably about $10 or $12. So I know it can be very cost prohibitive. But I think networking and putting things out that you're looking for a copy of a certain script. I think that we're very good. Directors are very good about sharing, and I think that if people have it available to them, I think that they will loan. I would surely loan my scripts. What other questions you got?
okay. So, so what comes first? You said the script or the kids. So do you go into looking for the script for the kids for this
Right.
particular group?
Right. Okay. I don't start the process. I don't cast usually until January. We don't start rehearsing until end of January, beginning of February. So I will start looking for the shows in the summer, and then I start working with my kids in the fall, and I look at my kids and I work with them. And sometimes it's amazing how they'll grow. You'll think, oh, I could never cast this particular role. You read that show in the summer, and then when you come back, the kids have grown. And I'm not talking physically grown, I'm talking about maturity and just awareness. And then all of a sudden I'm able to cast something that I didn't think I could. But I do look at my kids, and I will put a script down that I'm in love with, thinking I can't cast this show. And then by reading so much, 2 or 3 years down the road, I'll go, oh, I read this script and now I can do it. I remember feeling that way about Anna Karenina, thinking, oh, I love this script. I can't cast it. And then 2 or 3 years later, I read it. I had the kids, and I had already read it because I've built up this wealth of script knowledge. Anything else?
Got it. Got it. I have a couple of questions about cutting, but I think you're going to tackle that next, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Go.
Okay. When I cut a script, like I said, I will read it through 3 times first, usually. And then I start thinking about what part of the story do I want. Some scripts have multiple stories going on, and sometimes I have to determine what I can put in, what I can do justice with for that 40 minutes. And it's very hard for me to cut beautiful language. and I'll have lines, and I like mourn the loss of lines, having to cut certain lines. But I go through and I'll do my cut. I'll send it to UIL, and then we'll start working. And then when I realize we've got to cut more, I sit down with the kids, and the kids are very intuitive, and I teach them from the very beginning that it's about the play, it's about the story, it's not about who has what lines. So they feel that they'll fall on that sword, and they'll say, cut this line. This line is not important because I've already referenced this. And also, if you can show the audience, you don't have to say it. So there's lots of things I'll cut because the audience will have seen it. They don't need to hear those lines at that moment. So also when I'm cutting, I'm very aware of transition. I never have done a show where we've stopped the show and went to a blue out, and people moved furniture around and moved the set around, and then we started. I have to cut it so the transition can go smoothly. And usually that transition is done with lighting. What I will do is I will have something going on, and then I will bring someone out and isolate them, and they will carry on with the story while things are moving or changing. I did that. If you've seen some of my work, you've seen I did that in Bug, where we had to drop in all of that. It's supposed to be aluminum foil. I had that one moment down where characters were peering into a telescope. I mean, not a telescope.
Microscope.
There you go, a microscope, and they had a lamp, and that was the only light on, so that we could do all these other things. I've also done it with just, you know, with our instruments that we're allowed to use to bring to contest. So transitions are very, very important in the cutting, that you keep the flow, you keep the audience engaged within that story.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions about cutting?
Yeah, we have a couple of questions about just where to begin. So is there something that you look for at the very beginning? It's like, okay, this has to go.
Yes. I will go in order of the script. I just read it, and as I go, I realize, oh, this has been said again, or this has been repeated, or I've already cut out that plot, so I don't need these lines. I just start cutting. I just start cutting, and sometimes I will cut out 2 or 3 pages at a time. I'll just, X them. I don't need these pages. This last year we did that wonderful new version of Macbeth that is about the girls that are from basically a Catholic girls' school that meet out in the woods, and they're performing Macbeth. And there were, with the language, a lot of, I got rid of it. I just skimmed it down to the bare bones of the story. And that's how I cut.
Okay. If you are starting with a script that is already short, do you recommend cutting that? I assume they mean maybe a short play, a one-act play.
Well, if it's under time, I wouldn't cut it, unless there were just things I thought, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I think there are a lot of plays that are better a little cut. There's some I think that can stand to be cut. Now, it's horrible. The playwright, of course, has intended and has wonderful work, but I will cut things if I think it serves the story and serves the stage that is UIL. Mm-hmm. You don't want to have 40 minutes of action packed, because you're not allowing any type of moment. You're not allowing any type of processing from your audience. And I always tell my kids, if the audience doesn't see that or understand that, we haven't given them time to process that, it's not reading. So that's not working. It's not working.
Mm-hmm. This question is, how do you approach cutting more of your script if you're running over at your first clinic? So you're still running, a couple of minutes over time.
Right. Well, I talk to the kids, and we think about what moments can go and what moments are not necessary to tell the story. And is there any way we can show this instead of say these lines? Is there something we can do that lets the audience understand without actually having to put the lines in?
Okay. Okay. Another question, since COVID closed down one act play competition last spring, would you consider reusing your play from this year? Especially
Oh,
since you have your
I
set
know,
and
I
costumes going on.
know. No, I'm not. And, I had these incredible costumes built because they were these Catholic school girls, so they had their school uniforms. And I cannot replace a couple of my characters. My girl that was Macbeth, she's still there. And my Banquo graduated, and so did my Lady Macbeth. And it's like I said, I can't replace them. With the kids I have right now, I cannot replace those characters. And so, no, I now might I do it in the future? Yes, but it not for not next year, unfortunately.
Yeah, but for everyone out there, I mean, there's no rule that says you can't redo the same play.
Right, right.
Okay.
It
All right.
just it just isn't going to work for me right now.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Go ahead and continue. You want to
Okay,
continue?
okay. Let's talk a little bit about set design. Once I start working on my show, I and this is a letter here that my kids use. It's something that I give to them at the beginning of contest when they audition, and it's a packet that they read, and I've got it in here just so you can sort of see what I use. I blatantly stole this from Rod Sheffield about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. So, and we do that a lot. So I saw that. So let me go back. Okay, let's talk about set. My set design. I have to see the play in order to direct the play. And if I don't have a clear picture of what it's going to look like, and what it's going to sound like, what I want the first impression to be, I can't direct it. And there's many times where I've read a play and I'm like, no, I don't see that, and I'll just put it down. And then a couple of years later, I'll come back and I can see it. But I have to be able to have that movie playing in my head of the show. So I do a lot of research on the show to determine what some possibilities are, and I really think about what the audience sees and what the impression is uh, for the audience. I always like to start with sound because I think that puts the audience in the world first. And I do it with the lights off, of course. I start with sound so that you sort of engage into that world, and then the lights come up and you're in that world. And I like to end with sound too. I like to have that downtime for the audience. And I like to bookend my plays too a lot of times, which means I might start with a sound and I'll end with the same sound. Or like when we did Bug, we started with that motel sign and then we ended with the motel sign. I've done things where I turn lamps on and then I turn lamps off. I come up with the world. I come up with usually a color scheme. I do all types of inspiration boards for this. And then my kids start adding to the inspiration boards. I do a big design handout to the kids so they understand and they can contribute. And it also teaches them to look at things in a very artful design, have design aesthetic. Um, I will give them sounds to hear. I'll talk about textures. I talk about temperatures of things. We talk about, of course, about socioeconomic. It just depends. A lot of the shows are done in such different ways. And I think that's very fun that you get to work in these different worlds and they all look different and they sound different. So I do the same thing with costuming. I'm very, I love the design aspect. The costumes, sometimes I have them built, sometimes I pull. I do rent my costumes and I loan my costumes to people. People have used them for years. They're not sacred items to me. I think that they're meant to be used and meant to be put on kids. And I feel very good about that. Um, I costume from all the way from their hair to the shoes on their feet. I think the more detail we can give the kids, that the more it helps them with their character. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but one of the things that I do when I cast the show, I cast a crew and then I cast an on-site crew. Now that's changed a little bit because of the new UIL rule where you can have more people in your crew than just 5 people. You know, it's the company number. But I still cast some kids because I want, and when I say cast, I still include them and I call them the on-site crew. And their job is they are assigned pieces of the set that they are to maintain. Like before we go up, after we rehearse, they go through, they look at that couch, they make sure that everything's like it's supposed to be, the upholstery is like it's supposed to be. I use a lot of complicated pieces. One year I used these big flowers that opened and closed and we did Baby with the Bathwater. And somebody had to look at those every day to make sure that they were in good shape. So I have kids that's their part of the show. Also, I have kids usually prop kids or costume children that are on the on-site crew, and their job is to help the actor research. And a lot of times these are kids that are freshmen or underclassmen that will eventually be cast probably in one-act play, but they're just not there yet. But it teaches them how to do some character work. Like when we just got through doing Macbeth, each girl was assigned 2 other students to talk to them about hair and makeup and the kind of character they were. These girls were high school students, so to differentiate them, because they're wearing these Catholic schoolgirl uniforms that all look the same basically, we really had to say, okay, what kind of girl are you? Okay, what kind of shoes would you wear? Oh, you're into anime, or you're into goth, or you're into these natural, you're a vegan, and so we're going to come up with these kinds of things that would work for your character. They have kids that help them do that, and I think that's really good because it allows a lot of other students to participate in the one-act play process. Okay, Paula, any questions yet?
Yes. So this has to do with collaboration with your technical director. So what kind of discourse, collaboration, what's the process like between you and your colleague in order to come up with a set design that matches your creative concept?
Okay, I will normally do a rendering or a sketch of what I see, and then I give it to the TD, and it depends on really who I'm working with at that time. Sometimes I have a brand new TD with not really any technical experience who we sort of sit down and I really collaborate strongly with my vision. Sometimes I have somebody that's more experienced because I've done this for 29 years. So I've gone through, it's like I used to say it was the dark arts room. I had somebody in there, a lot of different people in there sometimes. I would talk to them about the feel and what I want the moment to be when the curtain opens, and they come up with, and they bring me things. We share pictures, we share the inspiration boards, we put up sometimes something in the room that has all the design work on it so that everybody sees it and all the kids can see it and they can add things to it as well. You have to be very collaborative. I'm very fortunate. I have 3 people, and sometimes we work with one of our middle school teachers as well. That gives us a 4th. But I have somebody that does lights and sound. And it's the same thing with lights and sound. I talk to them about what I see, what I feel, and then they come back. They get the kids together and they'll work for about a week on and bring me something to listen to, and bring me sounds, or bring me images and say, is this what you have in mind? Is this what you were thinking about? And we just go back and forth, and we do a lot of collaborative work. We're fortunate that we all have a lunch break at the same time, and our conference period is the same. So that gives us a nice time that we can sit down and really go through everything. Yeah,
Okay. Some questions about your on-site crew. Do they get to travel with the rest of the company?
Yes, yes, they do. They travel with the rest of the company. They travel with it in the Temple. The way you get a letterman is that you have to be part of the one act play. So we do these big shows every year, not counting one act play, that all these kids participate in, and then when it comes to one act, all of a sudden it's hard to limit the kids that are going to be involved, because these children have worked all year so hard, or worked 2 years so hard, that I think they're very deserving of the letterman. So these kids travel with us, and our administration has been very supportive of it. They see what the kids do. They see what the kids learn. They see the teamwork and the camaraderie and the discipline and the time management that goes into being in the one act play. And I think it honestly helps the kids with their grades. It gives them, it's like, well, theater's over and I'm not in the one act play, and it's really not that important. I do this math homework. Well, they understand that they still have to keep their grades up. And it creates a really good tradition of excellence for kids to watch these older students perform and see how things are done. They have sign-up sheets. Every time we travel, there is a roster of, like the prop kids have, what is in this prop tub, what is in this prop tub, and they check it. Then the actor that touches that prop has to check it, and they sign off. The same thing with their costumes. The same thing with the set as it's going into the truck. Everything is checked off, and this really makes those kids have ownership of the show, even though they're not particularly in the cast or in the the crew, however many people you put in the crew. They're not in that company, that amount in that company, but it also makes them have a lot of ownership of the show.
Okay. I have a question about casting. So this director teaches at an all-girls school. For one act play, should she stick to all-girl plays, or would it work putting females in male roles for UIL?
Well, I've seen both. I've seen both be very successful. You need to check out that wonderful version of Macbeth we just did. That's all girls. It's an all girls show.
Yeah, there's a question about that too. The playwright of that version, the adaptation of Macbeth.
Oh, you know what? Isn't that awful? I don't remember. It's Peter Dinklage's wife from Game of Thrones. Isn't that awful? I can't remember her name right now.
I'll find it for the end.
Yeah, it's dramatist carries the script.
Dramatist, okay.
And it is it was in manuscript version when I did it last year. I don't know, but they still gave me permission to do it. I have never in UIL, I don't know. That's not true. Oh, heavens, no, that's not true. I've put boys in dresses. I forgot about that. Yeah, I've done that. So it depends upon your world of reality and what they can, if they can play the truth, I think, as far as doing that. And I think sometimes you've got to check to see, you can't change the sex because of what the playwright's intent. You're not supposed to change the sex, but if you have a boy playing a girl, if it's with truth and intense truth, and the same vice versa, I think that's a risk you take. And sometimes it pays off and sometimes maybe it doesn't. But I don't think I would limit myself if I taught an all-girls school just to plays for females.
Okay.
I don't think I would.
Question, do you have rehearsals during class, or are they after school?
No.
Or before
All
school?
of my rehearsals are after school. Now, what I do, we use our theater production. We have 8 periods in our day at Temple High School. We use theater production as the 9th period. So all of my kids are in theater production that are in the shows. And what that does, that is class time, so that does not count in our 8-hour rule. So we rehearse after school, with the first hour of that being theater production. But the kids don't sign up for theater production. Once they're cast at the beginning of the year, I put them in theater production.
Okay. A question, is your inspiration board an actual bulletin board or more of a notebook?
Both. It's actually out where the kids can see it, but I also have it, I print it up, and it's given to everyone. It's given to the cast, it's given to, of course, my peers, the other directors. But we also put it out so that kids can see it, because they're really good about going, I found this, this looks like this, and look at this moment. And it makes them part of it. And it also gets the kids that are not involved in the one act play really excited about it. They'll say, what's this, miss? And I'll explain to them. And they, that's cool. That's really cool. I like that. And we try to do that for most of our shows so that the kids have a vision. And then I think it's what we do is so magical that we start with nothing and we create this world. And I think that that's a way that kids can buy into what we do. And I try to talk to my kids and teach them that theater is so much more than acting. And a lot of them are not aware of that. And they see this and they see that, yeah, there's something in theater that I'm interested in, something that I can do.
Okay. Another question. Can you speak to your approach as to big cast versus small cast shows and one act play?
Okay. I have done both. I have done a cast. I think Bug was my smallest. I think we had 6 in it, 6 or 7. And I've gone all the way up to having the full amount of students that you could have at that time. It just depends upon my kids. We do so much work, and I'm at a 6A school, so I know it's very different for smaller schools. And we're a small 6A school. We only have 2,000 kids, but it's still a 6A school. We do a lot of shows because I want kids to have stage time. I want everybody that wants to be on stage at some point to be able to be on stage. Normally we do one musical where everybody gets something. Everybody's in gets a role. So when it comes to my one act play, because we've done so much work, I don't feel necessary to put the full amount. Like I said, the kids audition for me all year, and I pick a play based on my A team. I really do. And sometimes, you'll get this wonderful kid that is perfect for this one role, but you couldn't see them in a lot of other things. And maybe they haven't been in as much, but they get cast. But I think that I'm going to go with the very best I have for one act play, and because everybody has plenty of stage time at Temple High School.
Okay. Let's see. That's kind of for me. Did you answer how many additional students do you take outside of your 24?
It depends. I've taken as few as 10 and as many as probably 18. But they all have a job. And they also load and unload the truck. I have kids that wrap furniture, wrap props. I have kids that are in charge of, like when we did Bug, somebody was in charge of blood. They had to unroll the rug before it goes in the truck, get all the blood off of it. We had people that were putting costumes in huge, really tightly sealed water containers to get the blood out. Everybody has a job. And so it depends. It just sort of depends upon what I think. The smaller the cast and the more I used to be able to take, but now because I can put additional crew people in, that's not necessarily the case anymore.
Okay. I have some other questions that are about just your whole program, about how you use kids, but let's go ahead and move forward. I'll jot those questions down and find a place to ask them,
Okay. All right, so I talked about set design, costume design, hair and makeup. I talked about how important it was for things to be cohesive. I've talked about music. My lights, we always travel with the full amount of lights that UIL allows us to have, because when you get to your school, the host school, you never know what their lights are going to look like. And there's some moments that I don't want to gamble on. So I will take lights with me. And I have moved lights. I'm that crazy woman that puts the kids in the ninja, in the morph suits, the black morph suits, and they go out and they'll move lights. and you don't notice them. Because I think one of the good things that a director does is direct where the audience should be looking. So I hopefully, sleight of hand, that we're looking over here, you don't see that kid in that morph suit come out and move that light. So I've also built little black, UI allows it to build these little black things to sort of mask the light downstage. But light is important, and I make the set and I make the lights flexible. So depending upon where we are, I can adapt my set. Between each level, we will measure off the size of the stage of the school in which we'll be competing next. And we make our set and our lights work in that space. This last couple of years, I have not been able to have curtains or really use our stage, because our band was using our stage, because all of our fine arts rooms got redone and the band moved into the auditorium. So I've had to work on a flat surface with no curtains, and sometimes not the right lights, or, just, which a lot of people have to do, because not everyone is blessed with a stage. So I've learned how to do that. Rehearsals. Like I said, I will cast the show. So it depends. If it's a heavy costume show, I might cast it in December, but I still don't start working on it till the beginning of February, because we usually do a big musical in January. So sometimes I will cast early, just so that I can get measurements on kids and get things in the process of being built. We do a little bit of table work. I have lots of friends that do a lot of table work. I shortcut the table work and try to we do some, but I also try to sort of intersperse it between the rehearsal, the physicalization of getting out on stage, because we start so late. We start in February. So I have found the quicker I can get the scripts out of the kids' hands, the better they're going to be. So I am very strict about lines, about when lines are due. And they've always lived up to that. I've been very, very blessed in that my kids have always lived up to that. They've always had their lines down when they're supposed to. But once I do the table work for a day or two, then we totally move out. And part of that process is learning all of that, looking at that research and asking questions. I direct by asking questions. I think it's a lot of frustrated directors who want to be actors that get up and perform for their kids, or I don't do that. I ask questions. And you're dealing with these kids, and they only have so much life experience, and that light will turn on sometimes with asking questions. Sometimes that light turns on, and I remember, I'm still this way, that light will turn on after the show closes. About a week or two afterwards, I'm like, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? It's because theater is a live, growing process, and that's what it needs to be. It needs to be this big, live, growing process. Did y'all just see the emails pop up on my screen, Paula?
No.
Okay, good. Because this is my husband's computer. I don't know what's happening. Okay. I do, also we do something called a group me, and I'm sure people are familiar with it. We do a group me for all of our shows. So if the kids have questions or the kids find things, they can put them on the group me. The group me is a communication thing that the kids get notifications, and they can look at their phone or computer, and if I send things out to them, or the stage manager sends things out to them. At Temple High School, in order to do a group me, we have to put an administrator on it, so the administrator sees the communication that's happening between the adults and the teachers and the kids. But I use a lot of team building things on the group me, and a lot of look at this image, or look at this moment, look at this thing I found. Our on-site, talked about that. I'm trying to think of things that our on-site does, or some other things that we do at Temple High School. One of the things, once we get the show going and everything is built, everything is constructed, it's like, what do you do with your on-site kids, during the actual rehearsal? Because they're in charge of things before rehearsal or after rehearsal. What do you do with them? Well, I set them in the house in strategic seats, and they take notes on what they hear and what they don't hear and what they don't understand. And I think that's a very important thing. They to try to make the journey special for everybody. I want them to be included in as much as possible. And also my kids, I do a big binder for them that has the logo of the show. And they are required to keep that binder with all of their notes, from everything, from notes that I give, notes that their peers give, or I didn't understand that word, or I'm not hearing the end of that word. Also, when they go to a clinic, they take their notes and put it in their binders. And when we go to a clinic, I think it's very important for you to listen to that clinician. I've gone to clinics and I've seen shows, and then the director never changed anything that the clinician talked to them about. And I know you have to be true to your vision. I know you have a certain thing you see, but we can't. There's so many things a clinician will say something that, oh, wow, I didn't think about that. Or it starts me thinking about something else. And truly, most of the things that I've had problems with, we have this lucky circumstance that things just sort of turn out trying different things. Or UIL has told me, no, you can't do that. And I thought, okay, how can I get that effect? How can I achieve that desired effect and still, follow the rules and do what UIL expects? And I get it's like, oh, that was even better. I'm glad that roadblock sort of came up, or I'm glad that happened, because it really caused us to really look at our show and think about what's going on. And when everybody takes notes from the clinician, right? The day after or the next rehearsal, I typed up all the notes, and I individually go through the notes the clinician said, so that the kids and I can discuss it, and we can think about, wow, we didn't realize that's what he or she the clinician was seeing. Oh, okay, now we need to reconsider that. So it opens up conversation. Rehearsals, I always tell my kids the difference between a rehearsal and a practice. If you're a swimmer, you go to swim practice, you want that dive to be the same every time. You want it to be, there's a form you want to have. Rehearsals need to always be different. The play has got to continue to grow. We've got to make discoveries. And I don't have my kids raise their hand and say, can I try this, Mrs. Tolleson? I tell them, don't ask me, just do it. Do it. Don't ask, just do it and let's see. Now, of course, this is a rehearsal process. We don't go out there and just change. We don't change our show in contest. But I think it's important. The more brains you have working on it, the more insight you have. And the more you teach your kids to think as an artist and to look at work through the design and through the research. And another thing I do with the research, this last show I did, Macbeth, some of the reviews were not good for the off-Broadway production. And I read those reviews, and when I read the script, I saw what they were talking about. So I already knew some things to change, or some things to cut, or some things to clarify. And you always start like the woman who wrote this version of Macbeth. She was inspired by those girls, that Slender Man stabbing, where the two girls took their friend out in the woods and said Slender Man asked them to sacrifice this girl. So at the beginning of the show, she talked about Slender Man, but it was nowhere in the script. It was only in the director notes from the playwright. So I thought, oh, okay, we're gonna go with that, and we're gonna do this Slender Man stuff. So we're gonna put Slender Man in there, and we're gonna have this big Slender Man puppet. And I got UIL permission to make this big Slender Man puppet, and because one of the critiques was that one of the reviews were saying they didn't understand the Slender Man tie-in. So I tried to make it obvious. I had them doing things, reading the newspaper about the Slender Man stabbings. I mean, I tried to incorporate that in, and I thought, what am I doing? And I went to clinic, and Luis Munoz was my clinician, and he loves all things gothic and scary, and he was like, I don't understand the Slender Man. I'm like, I don't understand the Slender Man either. What am I doing? Let's cut the Slender Man. And you've got to not be afraid to take stuff out that you thought you were really brilliant by putting in. You've got to realize that it doesn't read. I did Les Liaisons Dangereuses a couple of years ago, well, maybe 15 years ago, and I used art to set the location. All these different beautiful homes, I used this art that was indicative of the character that lived in that house. And then at the end, when the women are playing cards, I had the unveiling of Liberty Leading the People, which was a great French painting that had to do with the French Revolution, because there is a foreshadowing. And even the playwright, Christopher Hampton, talks about hearing the guillotine at the end of the play. Well, I'm all about this art. I'm all about this stuff. And of course it didn't read. And, the clinicians are like, I don't understand what you're doing with that. And I'm like, okay, you're right. It does not further my story. So I am not opposed at all to totally cutting out things that do not further the story. Okay, Paula, anything?
We do have a few questions about your process. So how much time do you give them to memorize their lines? After they get their scripts?
Okay. I block very fast because I pre-block everything. I don't organically block. I will pre-block. And then once the kids get that blocking in, I think it helps them learn the lines. Now, that doesn't mean we don't change the blocking. Organically, we might go back later and the kid will say, they'll try something new. And I'm like, that's perfect. Keep that. But I pre-block everything. So I will divide the show up, and I can get it blocked. What I'll do is I'll block about a third of it, and then we'll rehearse that for a couple of days. And then I'll block a third of it, and then we'll rehearse it. And then when we go back to the next time we do that 1/3, it's memorized. So within a 2-week period, my show will be blocked and memorized. Because since we start in February, sometimes I will go to a clinic with 11 days of rehearsal. And they've been off book for maybe 1 day for the whole show. For the last several years, I've gone my first clinic, and I normally only go to 2. My first clinic, the kids are in jeans and their Temple High School theater shirt because we don't have anything else ready. And they're using doofers. And I just explain to the clinician what's going on. And I'll give that clinician notes like this is what's happening and this is what they're wearing. And I'll even show them some of the research sometimes so they can get an understanding of what my idea is. But I don't worry about my aesthetics for the clinician. It's really about the story. I want them to see, is the story working?
Okay. A couple of questions about, I guess, how to use your on-site kids.
Mm-hmm.
Are they assigned to certain actors or to a general group?
Well, it depends. Like if you are on set crew, you are assigned a set pieces, and it's your job to maintain them. It's your job to wrap them for travel. It's your job to make sure that nothing's gone wrong with them. And if you are on costumes, you are assigned to an actor. If you are on hair and makeup, you are assigned to an actor. And it's your job to work with that actor in developing their character, doing some research, looking at possibilities for costume usage. So it just depends. And then I also have somebody that I call my assistant that is on the on-site crew. And they sit next to me and they take notes because I talk constantly through rehearsal. And they write down everything I say. And then, like I said, then I use the on-site for listening to the kids in the house.
Okay, move forward.
Okay, all right. Okay. Something else that the on-site does is I told you briefly that we do a checkoff list for everything. So it's very important that when you're traveling, you want to make it as stress-free as possible because it's a stressful situation. And I want my kids to understand the importance of planning. So we have checkoff lists that they go through. And I said the on-site kid checks it, that it's been loaded or that it's in the prop tub or in the wardrobe. And then the actor who touches it has to do the same thing. The same thing with my lights and sound. We teach kids how to roll cable, because not having your cable rolled correctly can be disaster in your 7 minutes or in your hour. So we teach the kids how to throw that cable, how to roll that cable, how to do all of that, so that we have as least amount of stress as we possibly can have in that stressful situation.
I assume you rehearse your rehearsal?
Yes, we rehearse. Yes. Okay. I have one rehearsal that is dedicated just to the 7 minutes. And we will do it over and over and over, because my thought is if we can't do it in 5 minutes, we got to start cutting things. So every set you've ever seen me put up, my kids have been able to put it up in 5 minutes because it's choreographed. They understand at what moment things had to be placed. And that's another thing I do with my on-site. Normally we always set up with a closed curtain, because that's like, I don't want to show you my slip. I want the magic to be there when the curtain and the light comes up. I don't want you to see my kids walking around. So we close the curtain. If there's anything in front of the curtain, one of the crew members in black or I or one of my colleagues sets up, and the actors are setting up behind. Our stage manager is running this time, giving like every 30 seconds, telling the time. And the kids are trained to know that by this point, I have got to be here. If I'm not here by this point, something's wrong. And so it's like a dance. It's choreographed, and we rehearse it many, 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 many times. And in every rehearsal, once we establish it, we always do that before we rehearse. We always do our 7-minute setup, always. Now, sometimes the strike is always so much easier. And once we've established the strike, I will let the on-site kids afterwards, like in rehearsal, strike the set and load it. Also, stacking the set. You never know what you're going to see at UIL. You don't know if they're going to say, oh yeah, you can spread your stuff all across, or you have to unload from your area in that 7 minutes. So I have my kids learn how to do both. And we also learn how to stack the set so that we know we're not looking for something that's at the bottom immediately. So we know exactly how it has to be stacked. And I also train the kids, when you're setting it up, this is where the dolly is. These are where the weights are. This is where you've put this clamp. And everything is color coded. Every clamp is color coded. All my stage weights are painted black. And not only are they color coded, the clamps, but it'll say like stage right, 1 clamp, or, like on this piece, all the clamps have green spike tape on them. On this clamp, on this piece, everything has red spike tape on it. And then when we spike our set, we also write on the tape what is going on that spike mark. Mm-hmm. Because so many times you might move your set around, and the kids need to know. Or they use, like, this scene has triangles on the spike tape. This has circles, or this has hash marks or something. So anything that will help them. And then when we get into our hour, my kids have a list of cues we call. And what they do. Like, I will say, like, immediately, stage manager checks curtain line. So-and-so checks where the outlets are in the back of the stage. Somebody checks the back black. Somebody's checking the travelers. And kids are taught what they spike. So they always spike the same thing, and then they write on them. So they carry scissors around their neck on tie line, and they have pre-cut spike tape. And here's a trick about spike tape. Don't ever put it on a hanger, because all it does is stick to itself. You take a sheet of paper and you run it through the laminator, and you put all the spike tape on the laminated sheet. You can pre-write what it is. You can put your marks on it, and the kids just peel it off like a sticker and stick it down. And that saves a lot of time, a whole lot of time. And then once we get all those things established, I go out in the house, and the stage manager runs the hour. And she will just say the first line for that cue, and the kids go to it. And then she'll say, they'll go as far as that cue needs to go to pick up all those special moments. And then she'll say another line, and the kids go to it. And it just goes. It just goes like clockwork. And then I also have at this moment, we can start striking. At this moment, we can start doing this. And we always ended plenty of time, usually, that we can walk around and check all the spike tape, and the kids can do some more vocal work. And so we spike everything. Spike your sound system backstage, spike your lights, spike the travelers, spike everything, so that there's no surprises.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The group is saying brilliant. So yes, I agree. Brilliant about the spike tape. Natasha, I really have to ask this question. So
Sure.
from someone, Natasha, you are such a great risk taker. From your show choices to the boldness of your designs, how did you find the confidence to start making choices other directors would be afraid to attempt?
I don't know. I think it's just my age and the years I've done it, but also one year we did a show, and I got interesting feedback about it, and we didn't advance. We got stopped at area, and the clinician, the judge, the adjudicator was like, was that an intentional choice with that costume, or was that an intentional choice with this moment? And I was like, oh yeah, everything's intentional. And then I thought, I'm not going to play it safe. I'm gonna step out there. I'm going to do something that I want the judges and the audience to be excited about seeing. I'm going to do something that is fun and refreshing and a little bit scary and a little bit edgy. And I don't do things for that reason, but I want something that feeds my soul, something that feeds my kids' soul. And I tell them what we're doing is a risk, but what we do every day is a risk. What we do, it doesn't matter. I don't think there's a safe play. I just think there are things that are exciting, and things that I think people need to see. So that's really the answer to that question. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid anymore. And that's very freeing, to not be afraid. It's very trusting your kids. And, I had to learn this. I started teaching in my 20s, and I did not grow up in Texas. And so I knew nothing about UIL. The first UIL contest I went to, I didn't realize you could cut the play. I thought you just had to find a 40-minute section. So I did 12th night, and I did 40 minutes of it, just 40 minutes of it. And then I didn't know about clinicians. I didn't know about clinics. And I went, and then I started watching the other plays, and I was like, oh, okay. All right. I'll know next time I'll figure this out. But I want it to be memorable. I want it to be memorable for everyone in the audience and for my kids. So there's the answer to that.
Okay. And so from Scotty Foltz to you, I'm Scotty, and I approve the message. So
thank you, Scotty.
There you have it. Natasha, I think it's probably have to wrap this up. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
Let's see. My administrator. Okay, I do some things that some schools probably might not be able to do. And one of the ways, I think it's because I've been there so long and they trust me, but also I make them a packet. Like, I'm getting ready to do Tracy Letz's bug, right? And I'm like, okay. So I do a packet for my administrator. I give them the script. I tell them what's going to be cut out of the script. I show them reviews, and I go to very reliable sources about the script. And then I talk to them about why that script is a doable show for Temple High School. And they buy into it. And I think that comes from trust. And I think also, to be honest, it comes from success. That they realize that I have an understanding of that. And I also make my administrator very much part of the process. Throughout the year, when we do a musical, our administrators are in them. So, you know, in the Big Doll House, they were all in drag, right? In Peter Pan, they were, you know, Captain Hook, or they were, you know, Mrs. Darling. So they see my kids and they see how I deal with them and they see what we do. So they really understand the process. And then we always buy them a shirt, a show shirt, and we give them buttons, and I buy little bracelets for my kids, you know, with our show on it, and they buy into this process. So I think that courting your administrator and letting them understand how much work and how much thought you have put into the show helps with being able to pick some shows that are a little riskier. Paula?
Sorry. I am here. I am here. Sorry, I had myself muted. So, okay, well, I think that's going to be it for today. I know we probably could go on another hour or so.
I know I had more notes. I was like, oh, I sure hope that I can talk long enough.
Well, fortunately, they will have this presentation. So
yes. And I know it's stuck on something weird, but it's like my research. It's just sort of like the process, just to give you an example.
Right. And do you have your email address in your presentation? All right.
Yes. And they're always welcome to email me. And like I said, I'm willing to help any way I can.
All right. Okay. People are asking for Natasha part 2, so maybe we'll see.
Okay.
We'll work on it. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great afternoon. Happy 4th of July.
Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your summer.
Okay. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye, y'all.